content is my biggest hope. It's going to carry us over because eventually people understand if you're really trying to help them, then they come back to your brand and they trust you, they buy your stuff.
Hi, this is Adam Dinkus from Tanner USA.
Hi, it's Emily Mithner of Travel Cat and Your Cat Backpack.
Hey, this is Tanner Leatherstein with Pegai.
You're listening to
E-Commerce Show.
Welcome to the Ecomm Show, presented by BlueTuskr, the #1 place to hear the inside scoop from other e-commerce experts, where they share their secrets on how they scaled their business and are now living the dream. Now, here is your host, Andrew Math.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Ecomm Show. I'm your host, Andrew Math, and today I am here with Tanner Leatherstein of Pegai. Tanner, how you doing today? You ready for a good show?
Yes, doing great. I'm very excited. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you on the show. I obviously love the approach that you're taking because I know it's got a personal brand side to it. Hence why we're calling you Leatherstein, which is great, which makes me want to rename my last name. Should be a lot easier. But thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, about Pegai, and we'll go from there, okay?
Okay, perfect. Thanks for the opportunity. So yeah, as you said, Tanner Leatherstein, it's a personal brand that to represent my passion for leather and the craft. I was born into a tannery, family-owned tannery. My dad got me involved in the business at the age of 10, 11. So what started as a game, it became a passion. And 5 years ago, I started Pegai, the leather crafts brand, going from the tannery end to the end user, actually doing stuff with leather that we tan ourselves. It grew very fast. We got great response from people. And I confirmed a few hunches I had my entire life. People didn't know enough about leather. There was always a little bit of uneasiness when people are shopping for leather goods. They didn't know if they were getting a good deal. It's real, it's not. And that drive me to the initiatives that I'm doing today with Tanner's Club, some other brands that trying to help people understand leather better, use it to its best potential. It's a beautiful natural material. And also other craftsmen and hobbyists, there's a huge interest in leathercraft these days to explore and have access to good leather to realize their designs, their dreams with leather. So that's all I'm about. I live, breathe, and sleep with that. And anything about leather, just ask me.
So, all right. So Pegai is obviously the big e-commerce store that we're here to discuss. But I know, as you mentioned, you have some other stuff you're doing, like Tanner's Club, and I think there's something else as well. Can you tell me a little bit about what else you got going on besides Pegai?
Yes. So Tanner's Club is the YouTube channel. Mainly, it's a YouTube channel. It's an informational, free resource for people to learn about leather. Fun facts, some skits, comedies we do with leather crafts, introducing the terminology around leather. I call it leathertainment. I came up with that word per se. So we try to entertain you while providing some leather information so you become leather savvy. The other initiative is called Tannerstein, which is our tannery brand. Now, it's a new brand. I'm launching the website this week and all. So it is to have other craftsmen have access to good leather that I had because of my connections in the industry when I was starting Pegai, and I became successful because of that. Good leather crafts start with good leather. So the Tannerstein is the tannery brand. I want other craftsmen to have access to good leather, which made me successful at the first place with Pegai when I started 5 years ago. I had the connections, I had the knowledge to find and source good leather, to have good crafts made with it. And that was key to success, getting good response from people. But not everybody who gets into leather craft today, without having any connection or knowledge before, have access or knows the way to find good leather, assess it, buy it at small quantities they need, good price. So I want to bring all that access and information available to anybody who's interested in trying something crafting with leather to be able to buy, a little piece of leather at a affordable piece very quickly, so they can start experimenting with it alongside with tanning knowledge. So that's another e-commerce website basically going live, serving the other artisans and crafts like Pegai. Hopefully they can offer more better designs to people, enriching the leather experience of the world. That's my end goal. It doesn't matter it's Pegai doing it or some other better designer doing it. So I just want to serve them, help them do their dreams realized.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask, because I was like, all right, so Pegai is obviously doing very well, hence why we're here on the show. We're also starting Tannerstein, which is essentially going to create competitors for you, is it not?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. I don't hate it. It's a very interesting approach, because then you can control them, which is even better.
the thing is, I don't see as competition. They're actually serving the higher purpose. My end goal is to improving the way world experiences leather. So I am one person, and my design team is just a small, ability to design certain things with the leather we have access to. But if we open this good leather access to tens of thousands of people, better designs will come out, better ways, better techniques will come out, and eventually the end user's experience will improve. And along the way, we're going to learn, they're going to learn. So it's a collaboration. It's not a competition.
Yeah. So about Pegai, one of the interesting things you mentioned is obviously you have like a personal brand that you're building out. You also have this YouTube channel, which I assume is tied to obviously both, but you don't really hear that very often from e-commerce sellers, right? Like typically that's a very strong B2B approach. You have your traditional B2B company where your CEO is trying to become like an influencer in the space, and they just put out a ton of content to make them a thought leader. So it's very interesting that that's an approach that you've taken on the e-commerce side that I think is often underutilized. So how did you come up with that idea of going down this personal branding and content route?
Well, that was an inspiration came to me a year ago. I don't know why or how. I had a trip to Hawaii just for vacation last year around this time, and it was a week long. We took our 1-year-old son. We had a great time, but something happened there. I don't know why. Location, the time of my life, the point where I am right now. I suddenly had a vision, a clarity in my purpose in this life. I was struggling with what I was doing with Pegai. I was trying to give good leather crafts to people, but suddenly that week, it came to me like my life goal here is to help people understand and use leather better. My entire life, people were asking me, hey, I just got this leather jacket. Can you check if it's good? Did I pay too much? And you wouldn't believe how many times I get this question whenever my friends learn about my leather involvement. And this occurred to me now, like today, we have this e-commerce, internet, social media abilities, and I can spread this knowledge to people in consumable and entertaining bits, so more people can leverage it if they want to. They become leather savvy to improve their usage of leather. They don't waste their money on subpar leather crafts. And in fact, I'm very against big leather brands, which ruined our experience of leather so far by standardizing and mass producing it, taking the character out of it. And I want to tell the story from the small craftsman, the authentic, natural look of the leather side, so more people has a better idea of what is good instead of just taking, big budget marketing fluff that's being sold to them by big brands versus this small craftsman movement, informationally and supporting them ability-wise to improve their ability of using leather. And I just envisioned myself as their neighborhood cobbler. If it was 50 years ago, you knew a cobbler in your neighborhood and you trusted him. When you go with a shoe problem, you trusted his knowledge because he was only giving you what is in his best opinion, right? I want to be that guy, the leather guy for the world, that they can go to my YouTube channels to learn my honest opinion about leather.
So you're almost taking, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you're almost taking like kind of like the big farm to table movement. You're almost doing like farm to jacket or to wallet or whatever it is that you're making, correct?
Exactly. So I actually name it as a movement as well, but it's a movement of small leather craftsmen, tens of thousands of us taking leather as natural as possible and crafting with, super diverse base of ideas and imaginations to the end user versus just 5 or 10 major brands doing it the way they want. And in my personal professional opinion, they're ruining the leather entirely. They're censoring the leather for us because it's profitable that way. So with this interest going in the people as a hobby or as a craft, as a garage business, they want to do something with leather. I want to support them as a movement. So we take the big business from the major brands while enriching the experience of the end user.
Interesting. So I would imagine with these, there's some serious big sized leather brands that obviously you know of. And I know that they have the brand recognition. A lot of people, whenever they're thinking of buying something leather, they typically end up going to them. And you're obviously bringing a very different movement here. But I can also assume that education of, basically teaching the consumer of like why they should go to you versus going to one of these big competitor guys. Like, how are you able to kind of convey that message and get them to understand, like, here's why you want to work with me as opposed to shopping with, one of the bigger guys?
So the key point here that I'm against big brands is they simplify it for themselves to make it profitable, which is standardizing leather. As you know, leather is a natural material. It's not standard. It comes in all kinds of different diseases, different animals, different geographies, climates. So there's no leather like a fabric. It's a perfect slate. But that's the beauty of the leather. The entire history of humankind, we embrace leather with its imperfections. That's what makes leather a characteristic material. But when you go to the bigger brands, they don't have ability at that scale to embrace this imperfection. They have to buff it off, cover it up with heavy makeup. Then it looks like another piece of fabric. It's completely standardized. It's plastic covered on top of the grain. The base is leather, but the top is not anymore. It's plastic. It's super heavy makeup. It's not the authentic connection that I can feel versus that original leather we started with. They have to do it that way. You can't make millions of wallets with varying grains of leather.
Yeah.
At that scale, that's the only profitable way. And yet, when they're doing this, they spend enormous amounts of money in marketing and fashion shows and all that stuff, trying to tell you how great leather it is. It's not. They are standardizing it and telling a different story. I want to tell people the great leather is with its imperfections. That's what makes every piece unique. That's when you get a unique piece. Like nobody else will have the same item that you just have. And small craftsmen have this ability. We don't have to make millions of wallets. So we go pick this artisan leather. We work with the imperfections. There is a craft side to it. It's not a mass manufacturing method. It brings out the good, natural, authentic feature of leather. That's what's valuable leather to me. And that's the story I'm trying to tell people, make them aware. There's also a different side of the coin as well. What you're buying with some brands is not only leather, it's status. You pay $1,000 to a bag. What you carry around is the status symbol. You can show that you can afford that bag. You're successful. You're achieved in your life. That's a different thing you're buying from those brands. If that's the goal, they're serving that goal perfectly. But just so you know, that's not great leather, as they say. It's not the greatest leather bag you can buy. There is much more authentic and beautiful leather made by smaller craftsmen that's worth every penny you will pay to them.
So with their ability to do it in bulk versus where you're on almost more of like, I don't want to say custom, but theoretically kind of like a custom approach, so probably more limited runs, correct?
Yes.
So if someone went to your website, so they go to Pegai, they pick out an item that they really like, is it just, you only have X amount of inventory for each thing? Or is it kind of custom, like, okay, you've ordered this, now we're going to go make it based on the leather that you have available?
Well, we keep making most of our designs from the leathers we make. The key point making each item unique is we don't go with that kind of finish techniques covering up the leather grain.
Yeah.
We pick as clean leather as possible. Because we're working small, we can find that amount of clean leathers in the market. You can't find so much of the best leather because it's like it's an equal distribution, right? Not every face is super clean. There's leathers with a lot of scars that I can't work with my minimally transparent finishes I'm working with. But now at my scale, hundreds a day, I can find as much as I want. And with that kind of leather I'm using, every piece I craft is different. I have a picture on my e-commerce website, but you will never get the same thing when you actually purchase an item. It is how it's going to look like. There might be some blemishes, some scratches, some effects, some variations. So that's the kind of uniqueness you will get with smaller craftsmen like myself versus the big brands. Everything, as you see on the website, will be delivered to you. And if you're going for that purpose, they serve it greatly, and small craftsman doesn't. So that's the difference.
Where are you able to source your leather from?
Mainly in Turkey, originally where I'm from. That's what I did, the tannery business and all. So most of the raw hides are coming from the regional Anatolia area. Heavy steer hides, and probably about 5% of the entire hide population is clean enough to make my selection of finishes. The rest 95% has to go through some form of correction, which is going to those bigger brands.
Okay. So you obviously you mentioned you have the personal brand, you have the content side that you do a lot of, but you've surpassed, 7 figures. You're obviously a growing business, which is difficult to scale, doing just the content and you're branding yourself. What other marketing strategies have you guys started to leverage to kind of start getting your name out there?
Well, there's not much specific marketing we leverage so far. We use the platforms. We started in Etsy, Amazon Handmade, and our own website. The only marketing we did was basically getting some help from Google Shopping, and try to capture some search results. We tried some social, but not very successfully so far, to be honest. And I'm not very actively marketing these days. I'm more spending my time on creating content in Tanner's Club and informative videos. I think it's more beneficial to everybody. Like, people learn something. In return, they come back, check what we have. Sometimes they buy it or not, or at least they learn something. So this is the way I'm exploring right now. And it's pretty new. It's about 5-6 months old, the Tanner's Club and all. It's growing, and we're trying to do more content creation faster every day. But that's as much as we did so far. It's more like organic growth.
Wow. So as I mentioned, you got over that, that 7-figure hurdle, which is always one of the tough things to get over. And so you got over that with, kind of just a content approach and your own personal branding. There really wasn't too much else outside of that.
Well, the biggest thing was the quality of the leather and imagery. So I think what really helped us was starting with good leather. Again, my main motto here is like, good leather craft start with good leather. Once people get the product in their hands, they touch it, and then they're happy, and they start talking about it. Their friends come back, they come back. So that's the biggest movement, like word of mouth marketing, the strongest point. But we kept improving our visual representation in our e-commerce platforms, taking better pictures, showing the grain, the variations, the color, the shades, everything in better formats. Helped tremendously, because leather is a touch and feel thing. And when you're doing this in e-commerce, it's really difficult to convey this message, like how it's going to feel, how it's going to touch. That was the second big impact on top of content marketing, getting us there.
Yeah. So that approach got you, to where you guys are at now. What are you thinking is what you guys need to do in the future to kind of keep everything growing and keep things moving?
Yeah, that's actually a big question we're trying to tackle now. But I'm very hopeful on the content side right now.
Mhm.
Tennis Club is the biggest time-consuming thing in my day right now. I'm spending more than half of my day tinkering new content, trying new ways to find content ideas or scripts to convey leather information to people in an entertaining package, which is not that easy at the start off.
No.
So, we were just doing a video. Actually, I'm going around the world finding different new leathers, and I just come up with a touchscreen ability leather for making gloves. So we just made a video using this leather, which has touchscreen ability. You can use your finger on your phone. Even
Mhm.
this is on your hands now. It's not a typical function of a leather glove. So I want to let people know this is something possible with leather too. When you're leather shopping, leather glove shopping, just pay attention. You can get this thing. Even though I don't have a leather glove offering for my brand yet, I want people to know like this is something out there. When you're paying money, a lot of money to a leather glove, you better get the best possible thing. If you don't know, you may not look for it. So
Yeah.
content is my biggest hope. It's going to carry us over because eventually people understand if you're really trying to help them, then they come back to your brand and they trust you. They buy your stuff.
Yeah. Nice. What are some of what are some of the struggles that you guys have in this category? Like, I know that, you're primarily on the content side. You have these really big guys out there that you're going after, that you're fighting up against. So like, what is it you guys are constantly fighting with?
Well, basically, usually the craftsman like me is a small team, either one man operation or a family or a few employees, because of the limited resources we have. And e-commerce requires a lot of actions. You got to take pictures, you got to take beautiful pictures, you got to communicate all the aspects of the craft, which is touch and feel, and you don't have that luxury in the e-commerce. So how do you do all that stuff? On top of that, the marketing, the social, these are huge workloads for one man or a family team. These were the biggest hurdles. I was lucky enough to build a good team around my marketing. We're working very hard, but again, it's just small amount of people trying to do a lot of quality work in a very competitive space. Leathercraft is competitive. If you're looking at from that perspective, there's tens of thousands of offerings every day on your social media accounts and every day, or Google, wherever you go in online shopping perspective. It's hard to come in front of people's attention when they're shopping for it and actually do the conversion. So the marketing is tough, and especially when you're a small team with limited budget, it's much tougher comparison to bigger brands.
Yeah. Are you only available on your website, or do you sell on are you on any like marketplaces or anything like that?
We do sell on marketplaces, Etsy, Amazon, Handmade, Amazon, and our own website. Now we're expanding into new markets, like new countries. Soon we're going to start in UK, and very soon we're opening sales in Turkey. Even though we were making most of our stuff in Turkey, we never opened our sales in Turkey so far. But it's starting there, and soon after that, Germany and Taiwan and Japan gonna come next.
Nice. Which of those channels right now is your top revenue driver? Is it your own website, or is it Amazon or Etsy or one of the other regions you're going into?
Etsy and Amazon are the bigger ones, and time to time they change. This year Etsy is bigger, next year Amazon gets bigger, so they're kind of going equal. But the constantly growing side, taking more share from them, is the website. So people, once they buy Etsy or Amazon, they come back, they check our website. We have everything available across platforms, but they eventually buy more from our website going forward.
Yeah. I know like handmade is very difficult. Like it, there's definitely channels that are fantastic for it, like Amazon Handmade and Etsy and all that fun stuff. But how do you anticipate continuing to scale the business, even if that is something that you want to do? Like, because do you have to bring on more employees, obviously help you with creating a different product line, or do you think you'll eventually, look into having some kind of machinery, or what's the thought process through there?
No machinery. I want to expand my team. I have a team of 25, 30 craftsmen in Turkey doing our crafting in-house. Like everything we sell is made by our own team in our workshop in Turkey. So it expands, and we actually like it. So the more people has good work opportunity. We have teaching programs. We actually get employees who hasn't done leather work before, and we teach them. We teach them this craft, and eventually they learn an occupation going forward for themselves as well. So that's kind of another fun part I enjoy doing. Nice. I don't mind expanding the business, and the sustaining growth is basically coming from new product designs. Anytime I design a new product, this business grew. So whenever I introduced, let's say I introduced a Marshall portfolio, which was 2-3 years ago, it became a huge seller. And then I introduced a camera strap a year after that, it becomes a huge seller. So as long as I keep adding more designs into portfolio, business keeps growing. Just expanding your categories, serving people with different ways is, I think, just ensuring way of growing sales in my experience so far.
Nice. Are you currently having any issues with like all the current, supply chain problems? Like, are you shipping everything by a boat? Are you doing it by air? What kind of issues are you having with that right now?
Mainly, I'm doing by air, and on the air side, we didn't see too much of an increase. There is a price increase in the air cargoes as well, which is our 95% of the shipping method. Mm-hmm. But we were doing by sea the container stuff time to time, maybe once, twice a year. But at our volumes, it's very costly, building that kind of inventory, waiting in 2 months in the road and all that stuff. But with the COVID and supply chain crisis, the container prices gone up like 3 times, 4 times of they used to be. Mm-hmm. And that becomes, completely illogical at this point. We're not doing that anymore. So that is not a big issue, but there's major issues in the leather industry, the chemical supplies, the tannery sides.
Yeah.
So far, I haven't got any major disruption. I always have enough stock in hand for leathers and all that, and with my tannery connections. But I know some people had difficulties replacing the leather they used and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What is it that you would say, like, what motivates you, right? Like, it's always interesting to me, like, how's the business growing? What struggles are you doing with things like that? But what I find a lot of people never realize is, there's always a person behind the business, and the motivation is always very interesting. Like, some people are obviously like financially motivated, others are educationally motivated, and some are just, the drive to not have a boss. So like everyone's got their own thing. So what is it that motivates you to like get up, keep making content, and keep trucking along through the leather industry?
So I love when I see the impression in people's face when they see a good leather. Mm-hmm. I present something, a product, a leather, and I tell something about that leather that I know they didn't know before. They touch it, they feel it, and they just enlightened. They're like, oh, I didn't know that, but this feels great. I'm going to look for it next time. So this excites me. It just, from then on, that person is a different view, different perspective to enjoy leather better in at least one perspective. So that's satisfaction to me. And second, working with leather is not working to me. So that's how my life started. That was a game when I was 10, 11 years old. My friends were going to play soccer after school. I was going to tannery, making tests in my drum to make myself a leather jacket. That was the game, and I get to play it every day still. So
Yeah.
I started this business 5 years ago, quitting a consulting job in a very nice consulting firm, like super cushy job that my friends told me you're stupid. But I was dying there. Like every day I was going to work, I was dying in it. And since I did that decision, just every day is a game day for me. So
yeah, it is always nice to hear the passion for the product is what's driving, because you'd be shocked at how many people I've had on this show where they're just like, I just, I want to exit and I just want to get it over with. Or they're in a product line that they're like, I just saw that there wasn't a lot on Amazon, so I made some. I was like, okay, hey, everyone's got their own. So
exactly. And
very interesting.
Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, nothing wrong with it. Everyone's got their own. But Tanner, really appreciate having me on the show. Great time. Super appreciative. I'd love for you to take a minute, let everyone know where they can find out more about you, more about Pegai, and everything else you got going on.
Okay, we'll definitely do that. Thank you for the opportunity. I enjoyed it a lot. Beautiful show. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Where can everyone find out more about you guys?
Oh, sorry. We can direct them to a couple places. Basically, Tanner's Club is the place that I want everybody to go subscribe at their early chance. We were going to keep pushing new stuff, and they can learn and have fun with leather over there. But Pegai.com is another place which we feature those content and some crafts we do it. And Tannerstein.com is where we're going to start selling as leather tools, machineries we use at Pegai to craft those things. And if you're interested in as a hobbyist or craftsman, go check it out. Let us know how we can help to use leather better or make leather better together.
Very cool. Tanner, super appreciative. Thank you so much for being on the show. Everyone who tuned in, of course, thank you as well. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe, all that fun stuff on whichever podcast platform you want, or YouTube, or at ecommshow.com. But per usual, thanks again, and we will see you all next time. Have a good one.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ecomm Show. Head over to ecommshow.com to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or on the BlueTuskr YouTube channel. The Ecomm Show is brought to you by BlueTuskr, a full-service digital marketing company specifically for e-commerce sellers looking to accelerate their growth. Go to BlueTuskr.com now for more information. Make sure to tune in next week for another amazing episode of the Ecomm Show.